Have you ever been around a man who seems to care deeply for you, but something holds him back from saying it? His eyes linger just a little too long, his actions speak volumes, but his words remain locked away. You sense it, you feel it in the way he protects you in small, unnoticed ways, in how he listens when you speak, in the way his energy shifts when you're near. But when it comes to expressing his emotions, there's a wall, one he refuses to let down. You start questioning yourself, wondering if you're imagining things, overanalyzing every little detail. But what if the truth is simple? What if he loves you but is hiding it? Men don't always express love the way women expect. While some wear their emotions openly, many hide them beneath layers of logic, fear, and conditioning. Society teaches men from a young age that vulnerability is a risk, that expressing emotions could lead to rejection, that strength means control. For years they've been told to be tough, to suppress tears, to hold back when emotions surge. And so, when love enters the picture, it feels unfamiliar, even dangerous. He may love you deeply, but admitting it requires opening himself up in a way he's never been taught to. Then there's the fear of rejection, a fear that runs deep, even in the most confident of men. Love isn't just about attraction, it's about acceptance. When a man allows himself to love, he is offering a part of himself, an unguarded, unfiltered truth. And the thought of being rejected, of not having those feelings returned, is terrifying. Some men would rather keep their love hidden than face the pain of knowing it was never truly wanted. They mask their emotions with indifference, keeping their distance just enough to protect themselves. But in the quiet moments, when they think no one is watching, their love reveals itself, in stolen glances, in silent sacrifices, in the way they remember the little things that matter to you. Sometimes a man hides his love not because he doubts his feelings, but because he doubts himself. He may see you as someone extraordinary, someone he believes deserves the best, and deep down he may wonder if he is enough. If you've ever felt like a man is holding back despite his affection, this could be the reason. Love brings out insecurities we never knew existed, and for a man who truly cares, the fear of not measuring up can be paralyzing. Rather than risk being seen as inadequate, he stays silent, hoping his actions will be enough. But love has a way of slipping through, no matter how hard he tries to contain it. You'll see it in the way he prioritizes your happiness, even when he pretends it doesn't matter. You'll notice it in his quiet presence, in the way he subtly shields you from harm, in how he shows up when you least expect it but need it the most. Love isn't always about grand declarations. Sometimes it's about consistency, about effort, about the things he does without ever seeking credit. So if you've ever questioned whether he feels the same way, ask yourself this: does he make you feel safe, seen, valued? Does he remember the little details you only mentioned once? Does he respect your boundaries but still find ways to be near? If the answer is yes, then perhaps his love isn't absent, it's just hidden beneath the weight of everything he's been taught to suppress. And here's the thing about hidden love: it doesn't stay hidden forever. A man in love, no matter how much he fights it, will always find a way to show it. Maybe not in the ways you expect, maybe not with poetic words or grand confessions, but in the language of action, of patience, of silent devotion. The real question isn't whether he loves you, but whether you're paying close enough attention to see it. Rejection is one of the deepest fears a man can experience, even if he never admits it. For many, love isn't just about attraction, it's about risk. It's about stepping into the unknown, exposing a side of themselves they rarely let anyone see. And with that vulnerability comes the terrifying possibility of being unwanted, of having their deepest emotions met with indifference. The fear of rejection isn't just about bruised pride, it's about self-worth. A man who has genuine feelings for you isn't just afraid of hearing no. He's afraid that by showing you his heart, he's handing you the power to break it. This fear runs deep, often rooted in past experiences. Maybe he once loved someone who didn't feel the same way, and that rejection cut deeper than he ever expected. Maybe he gave his heart fully before, only to watch someone walk away without a second thought. Those wounds don't just fade. They teach him to be cautious. They whisper to him that love is dangerous, that keeping his emotions locked away is safer than facing the possibility of another heartbreak. So even if he feels something powerful for you, he hesitates. He tells himself he needs more time, more signs, more certainty. But in reality, he's waiting for proof that loving you won't lead to pain. And it's not just past experiences that shape this fear, it's also the way men are wired to protect their own sense of value. Rejection doesn't just sting, it can feel like a confirmation of their deepest insecurities. When a man falls for a woman, he often places her on a pedestal, seeing her as someone incredible, someone he needs to be good enough for. But if he confesses his feelings and gets turned away, it's not just a moment of disappointment. It feels like proof that he wasn't worthy in the first place. The thought of that is unbearable, so rather than taking the risk, he holds back, convincing himself that silence is safer. But here's where it gets complicated. Fear of rejection doesn't always look like fear. Sometimes it looks like arrogance, like detachment, like mixed signals. A man who secretly loves you but is terrified of rejection might act distant, uninterested, even cold. Not because he doesn't care, but because caring too much would make him vulnerable. If he keeps you at arm's length, if he convinces himself he doesn't need you, then rejection won't hurt as much. It's a defense mechanism, a way to maintain control over emotions that threaten to expose him. Yet even in his silence, his love finds ways to surface. Maybe he checks in on you without making it obvious. Maybe he remembers the smallest details about you, things you barely remember telling him. Maybe he subtly supports you, stands up for you, watches over you in ways he doesn't want you to notice. He hides his emotions with words, but his actions betray him. Because no matter how much he fears rejection, a man in love will always leave traces of his feelings behind. So what does this mean for you? If you sense that a man loves you but is too afraid to show it, understand that his hesitation isn't about you. It's about him. It's about his own battles with self-worth, his past wounds, his need for certainty before taking the leap. But love is never meant to be forced. You don't need to convince him to step forward, to reassure him endlessly, to prove that he won't be rejected. The only thing you can do is create a space where he feels safe, where his fears are met with patience, where he knows that if he ever decides to let his walls down, he won't be met with judgment. Because the truth is, a man who loves you but fears rejection will eventually reach a breaking point. He will either let his love outweigh his fear, or he will walk away to protect himself. And if he chooses the latter, if he lets his fear win, then he was never ready to love you in the way you deserve. Love isn't just about feelings, it's about courage. And the right man, no matter how scared he is, will find the strength to take that risk for you. A man in love doesn't just battle fear, he also wrestles with doubt. Not doubt about his feelings for you, but doubt about himself. What if he's not enough? What if he can't give you what you deserve? These questions don't always make sense from the outside. You might look at him and see someone confident, strong, capable. But inside his mind is a battlefield, and self-doubt is a relentless opponent. When a man truly cares for a woman, he starts evaluating himself in ways he never did before. He begins to measure his worth, questioning if he has what it takes to make her happy. Maybe he sees you as someone extraordinary, someone too beautiful, too intelligent, too out of reach. And when he compares himself to the version of a man he thinks you deserve, he feels like he's falling short. Not because he lacks value, but because love magnifies his insecurities. Men are often taught to be providers, to be protectors, to be strong enough to carry the weight of a relationship. It's an unspoken expectation woven into their identity. If he doesn't feel stable in his career, if he's struggling financially, if he's still figuring out his path in life, he might hesitate to express his feelings. Not because he doesn't want to be with you, but because he wants to offer you something more than just love. He wants to offer security, certainty, a future. And if he can't provide that yet, he might convince himself that staying silent is the right thing to do. But self-doubt isn't just about external circumstances. It's also about past wounds. If he's been in relationships where he felt unappreciated or where he gave his all and it still wasn't enough, those scars stay with him. They whisper in his ear, telling him that no matter what he does, history will repeat itself. That no matter how much he loves, it won't be reciprocated in the way he needs. And so, rather than risk another failure, he holds back. Yet love is a force that refuses to be buried. Even as he tries to suppress his emotions, they will surface in the way he treats you. He may not say the words, but he will show his feelings in 100 small ways. Maybe he quietly supports you, making sure you have everything you need before you even ask. Maybe he watches over you, making sure you're safe, even if it's from a distance. Maybe he finds excuses to be near you, to listen to you, to be in your world, even when he pretends it's all just coincidence. His love is there, but it's tangled up in a war within himself. And the hardest part? No amount of reassurance from you can fix it, because no matter how much you remind him that he is enough, that you don't need perfection, that love isn't about being flawless, he has to believe it for himself. Until he does, he will continue to hold back, afraid that if he lets himself fall, he won't be caught. So what does this mean for you? It means that if a man is hiding his love because of self-doubt, you must decide what kind of love you are willing to wait for. You can offer him understanding, patience, a space where he feels safe, but you cannot carry his insecurities for him. You cannot convince him of his worth if he refuses to see it. The right man, no matter how much doubt lingers in his mind, will fight through it for the woman he truly wants. He will push past his fears, his insecurities, his hesitation, because the thought of losing you will become more unbearable than the fear of not being enough. Love is not just about feelings, it is about action, and when a man truly loves you, no amount of doubt will be stronger than his desire to be with you. Sometimes love isn't hidden because of fear or doubt, it's hidden because of control. Not in a manipulative way, but in a way that protects a man's sense of stability, his sense of order. Love at its core is unpredictable, it's powerful, chaotic, consuming. It has the ability to reshape everything he thought he knew about himself, about life, about the way things are supposed to be. And for a man who values control, that can be terrifying. Many men spend years crafting a version of themselves that feels unshakable. They work hard to build emotional discipline, to stay focused on their goals, to keep their feelings in check. They've learned to operate in a way that keeps them safe, where logic rules over emotion, where attachment is measured, where vulnerability is kept at a distance. Not because they don't feel, but because feeling too much has the power to undo them. When a man who values control falls in love, it disrupts his entire framework. Suddenly he's thinking about you when he should be focused on work. Suddenly your happiness affects his mood in ways he never expected. Suddenly the walls he built to stay strong feel weaker than ever before, and that's uncomfortable, it's unsettling, because now something outside of him, something he can't regulate, can't predict, can't fully control, has influence over his heart. For some men, the only way to handle this emotional shift is to resist it, to pretend it isn't happening, to suppress the feelings before they take hold and reshape his world in ways he isn't ready for. It's why some men seem distant right when things start getting deeper. It's why they hesitate to make the first move, even when their actions show how much they care. It's not that they don't feel, it's that they don't want to lose themselves in those feelings. But here's the thing about love. It doesn't take orders. It doesn't listen to logic. It doesn't care how much control he thinks he has. If he truly loves you, that love will break through, whether he's ready or not. He will find himself drawn to you in ways he can't explain. He will notice the way your voice lingers in his mind long after you're gone. He will catch himself making choices based on your happiness even when he swore he wouldn't. Love will push against his need for control, forcing him to face a truth he's been avoiding. Some things in life are meant to be felt, not managed. So what does this mean for you? If you sense a man is holding back because he fears losing control, patience is key. Not patience in waiting for him to change, but patience in understanding his internal battle. This kind of man doesn't respond to pressure. He doesn't open up just because someone tells him to. He needs to reach a point where he sees love not as a loss of control, but as something that enhances his life rather than disrupts it. And this isn't something you can force. You can be a steady presence, a person he trusts, someone who makes love feel safe rather than overwhelming. But at the end of the day, he has to decide if his need for control is more important than his need to be with you. Because love isn't something that can be halfway embraced. It requires surrender, even from the strongest, most disciplined men. The ones who fight it the hardest are often the ones who love the deepest. They are the ones who, when they finally let go, love with a kind of intensity that is rare, unshakable, and profound. Because once a man who values control chooses love, he doesn't do it lightly. He does it with intention. He does it because he's realized something that changes everything. Some things in life are worth the risk of letting go. Love is a deeply personal experience, and for some men it's not just about emotions, it's about identity. When a man falls for someone, he doesn't just feel attraction. He starts questioning who he is in the presence of that love. And if that love challenges his sense of self, if it forces him to see himself in ways he's not ready for, he might choose to hide it rather than face the transformation it demands. Men are often taught to define themselves by their independence, their strength, their ability to stand alone. They are raised to believe that needing someone too much is a sign of weakness, that becoming too emotionally invested makes them vulnerable. That love, for all its beauty, has the power to make them dependent, and dependency is something they've been conditioned to avoid. So when a man meets a woman who shakes his core, who makes him feel emotions he can't easily control, he might instinctively resist. Not because he doesn't want her, but because loving her requires him to confront parts of himself he's never examined before. Maybe he's always prided himself on being emotionally guarded, and now he finds himself wanting to open up. Maybe he's always believed in keeping his distance, yet now he craves closeness in a way that scares him. Maybe he's always seen himself as someone unattached, yet now he can't imagine a future without her. This internal conflict is where love and fear collide. Because in order to fully love someone, he has to redefine himself. He has to make room in his life, in his identity, for the reality that he is no longer just living for himself. And that is not always an easy transition. Some men run from it, not because they don't care, but because they don't know how to balance love with the version of themselves they've always known. But here's what's important to understand. A man who hides his love for this reason isn't doing it out of malice. He isn't trying to play games, to string someone along, to manipulate emotions. He is wrestling with something that feels bigger than him, the understanding that real love will change him whether he's ready or not, and this is where his actions become more revealing than his words, because even as he tries to suppress his emotions, they will show in the way he looks at you, in the way he listens to you, in the way he remembers small details you never expected him to. He might hold back on saying the words, but his presence will give him away. Love doesn't simply disappear because someone refuses to acknowledge it. It lingers, it influences, it shapes decisions in ways that are undeniable. So what does this mean for you? If a man is hiding his feelings because he is struggling with his identity, the last thing he needs is force or pressure. Love cannot be demanded, it must be chosen. You cannot make him see what he is not ready to see, but what you can do is remain true to yourself. You can show him, through your own confidence and strength, that love is not something to be feared, that vulnerability is not a weakness but a sign of depth, of courage, of authenticity. The right man, when he realizes that love does not take away from who he is but instead adds to it, will step forward. He will let go of the fears that kept him from expressing what was in his heart all along. He will see that real strength is not in running from love, but in embracing it fully, and when he does, his love will no longer be something hidden, it will be something undeniable. When a man hides his love, sometimes it's not about fear, control, or even identity. Sometimes it's about past wounds, scars from experiences that left him questioning whether love is worth the risk. Love, for all its beauty, carries the possibility of deep pain, and for a man who has been hurt before, who has given his heart only to see it broken, hiding his feelings can feel like a form of self-protection. Pain leaves a mark. It changes the way a person approaches love. A man who has been betrayed, abandoned, or left feeling like he wasn't enough doesn't simply forget. He carries those memories in ways he may not even realize, and when he meets someone who stirs feelings in him again, those old fears resurface. What if he lets himself love and it ends the same way? What if he opens his heart and gets hurt again? What if the more he loves, the more he has to lose? For a man like this, love is not just a feeling, it's a risk. It's a gamble where the stakes are his emotional well-being, and no matter how strong his feelings are for you, there's a part of him that hesitates, that holds back, because he remembers what it felt like to lose himself in love, only to be left empty. This is why some men appear distant even when they care deeply. It's why they avoid deep conversations about feelings, why they pull away when things get too intense. It's not that they don't feel. It's that feeling reminds them of past pain, and rather than reliving that pain, they choose to suppress their emotions, convincing themselves that it's safer this way. But here's the truth. Love does not wait forever. Love, real love, demands courage. And at some point, he will have to decide whether he lets his past dictate his future or whether he steps beyond his fear to embrace what's right in front of him. This is not something you can force. You cannot heal him, fix him, or prove to him that love is safe. That is a battle only he can fight. What you can do is show him, through your consistency and presence, that love does not have to be pain, that real love is not built on betrayal or abandonment, but on trust and understanding. But also, you must recognize your own worth. You cannot wait endlessly for someone to choose love while they are lost in their own fears. You cannot put your heart on hold, hoping that one day he will be ready. Because love is not just about him. It's about you too. And if he cannot step beyond his past, if he continues to let old wounds control his heart, then he is not yet capable of giving you the love you deserve. The right man, even if he has been hurt, will realize that love is always a risk, but it is a risk worth taking. And when he is ready, when he chooses love over fear, he will not hide. He will show you, through his actions and his words, that you are worth the leap. And when that moment comes, his love will no longer be something he guards. It will be something he gives freely, without hesitation. Sometimes a man hides his love not because he doesn't feel deeply, but because he fears the power that love gives you over him. Love is surrender. It is an unspoken agreement to let someone matter, to let them influence your thoughts, your emotions, your decisions. And for a man who values control over his life, his feelings, his future, falling in love can feel like losing that control. From a young age, many men are conditioned to believe that strength is about self-sufficiency, about standing on their own. They are taught to be the providers, the ones who have everything figured out. They are rarely encouraged to be vulnerable, to lean on someone else emotionally. So when love enters the picture, when they begin to realize that someone has the ability to affect them in ways they never expected, it can be unsettling. He might find himself thinking about you when he least expects it, replaying your words in his mind, feeling emotions he isn't used to feeling. He might realize that your absence affects him more than he ever imagined. That his happiness is no longer just in his own hands but tied to yours, and that is terrifying for a man who has spent his life believing he needs to be in control. This is why some men resist deep emotional connections, not because they don't want love, but because love makes them feel vulnerable, and vulnerability to them feels like weakness. To admit he loves you is to admit that you have the power to hurt him, to change him, to shape the course of his life in ways he cannot predict, and that is something he might not be ready to accept. So he hides it, he keeps his distance, he acts indifferent, even when his heart is anything but. Not because he doesn't care, but because he cares too much. Because acknowledging his love means acknowledging that he is no longer fully in control of his own heart. But love is not about control. Love is about trust. It's about allowing yourself to be seen, to be known, to be vulnerable with another person. And a man who is truly ready for love will understand that real strength is not in resisting emotions, but in embracing them. The question is, will he realize this before it's too late? Because love, when ignored for too long, does not stay the same. If he continues to push it away, to pretend it doesn't exist, he risks losing something real. And one day he may wake up and realize that in trying to protect himself, he let the best thing in his life slip through his fingers. But here's what you need to remember. You are not responsible for his realization. You cannot force him to embrace love if he is still consumed by the need to control it. You cannot wait endlessly for him to see what you already know, because love is not just about him, it is about you too. The right man, when he is ready, will not fear the power of love. He will not see it as a threat, but as a gift. He will understand that love does not take away his strength, it adds to it, and when he reaches that understanding, he will no longer hide. He will show you in every way that matters that his love is something he is willing to risk, willing to surrender to, willing to embrace completely. And when that moment comes, his love will no longer be a secret, it will be something undeniable. Sometimes a man hides his love because he fears that loving you means losing himself. Love is powerful. It reshapes priorities, shifts perspectives, and changes the way a person moves through life. And for some men, that kind of transformation feels like a threat to their identity. He has spent years building his life a certain way, becoming the man he is. He has goals, routines, and a sense of independence that he values. Then suddenly he meets you, and without warning, his world starts shifting. He finds himself thinking about you when he should be focused. He starts considering your needs, your presence, your emotions, and he realizes that his life is no longer just about him. For a man who has spent years believing he is in full control of his destiny, this can feel overwhelming. Love demands space. It takes up room in a person's heart, mind, and life, and some men, especially those who are deeply focused on their own ambitions or personal freedom, struggle with what that means. Will loving you mean giving up parts of himself? Will he have to compromise in ways he never has before? Will he lose the independence that he has worked so hard to maintain? These thoughts don't mean he doesn't love you. On the contrary, they mean his feelings for you are so real that they are causing him to rethink everything. But instead of embracing that change, instead of allowing love to add to his life, he resists it. He convinces himself that if he gives in, if he allows himself to love you fully, he might wake up one day and realize that he has become someone he no longer recognizes. This is why some men hold back, why they refuse to define the relationship, why they keep one foot in and one foot out. They want to be close, but not too close. They want to love, but not at the cost of losing their sense of self. And so they stay in limbo, torn between wanting you and fearing what being with you might mean for their own identity. But here's the truth. Love does not take away who you are. It reveals who you are meant to be. The right love does not strip away independence, but rather enhances it. It does not diminish personal goals, but instead aligns them with something greater. And a man who is truly ready for love will understand that being with someone does not mean losing himself. It means growing alongside another person in a way that makes both lives richer. The question is, will he come to this realization before it's too late? Because love, when suppressed for too long, has a way of fading. No one can wait forever to be fully loved. No one should have to convince someone else that love is not a burden but a gift. And if he does not see that, if he continues to resist love out of fear of losing himself, then he may one day realize that in trying to protect his identity, he lost something even greater, you. But here's what you must remember. It is not your job to prove to him that love is safe. It is not your responsibility to wait indefinitely while he figures out whether he can accept what is already there. Because love is not just about him. It is about you too. And the right man, when he is ready, will not fear what love demands. He will not see it as a threat, but as an evolution, something that makes him better, stronger, more whole. And when that moment comes, he will no longer hide. He will step forward fully, without hesitation, because he will know that love does not take away, it gives. And he will finally be ready to receive it. Some men hide their love not because they don't feel it, but because they fear rejection. The idea of opening up, of laying their emotions bare, only to be met with indifference, or worse, to be turned away, is something they cannot bear. So, instead of taking that risk, they keep their love locked inside, hoping that somehow you'll see it without them having to say a word. From the outside, this might look like mixed signals. He shows up in ways that feel meaningful. He listens intently, remembers small details about you, does things that go beyond what a casual friend or acquaintance would do. But when it comes to actually saying how he feels, he hesitates. He pulls back. He keeps things ambiguous. It's not because he wants to play games. It's because he is protecting himself. Rejection is not just about hearing no to a man like this. It's about what that no represents. It confirms every doubt he already has, every insecurity he tries to hide. It tells him he wasn't enough, that he misread the signals, that he let himself believe in something that was never real. And that realization, that emotional wound, is something he would rather avoid at all costs. Many men are taught to measure their worth by their ability to succeed at work, in life, and especially in relationships. To confess love and be rejected feels like failure, a direct hit to their confidence. Even if you have given him no reason to doubt, even if you have shown kindness and warmth, he may still wrestle with the voice in his head that tells him, what if she doesn't feel the same? What if this ruins everything? So he stays silent. He hides his feelings behind casual interactions, behind jokes, behind a persona that keeps things safe. He convinces himself that it's better this way, that it's smarter to hold back rather than risk being hurt. He tells himself that if you truly felt the same, you would somehow let him know first, but deep down, he knows that love is not something that can be safely contained forever. This fear of rejection doesn't just stop him from confessing his love, it also prevents him from fully experiencing it. Instead of leaning into the emotions, instead of allowing himself to enjoy what is unfolding, he keeps himself in a state of restraint. He holds back, not realizing that in doing so he is robbing himself of something real. Because love cannot thrive in hesitation. Love needs courage. It needs a willingness to be vulnerable, to risk something in order to gain something far greater. But here's the truth. You cannot pull someone out of their fear. You cannot be the one to convince him that love is worth the risk. That realization must come from him. He must decide on his own that you are worth stepping through the fear for, that the possibility of rejection is nothing compared to the regret of never trying. Because love that is hidden, love that is never spoken, eventually fades into nothing. And one day he may look back and wonder what could have been, all because he let fear silence what his heart already knew. But you deserve more than hesitation. You deserve someone who does not let fear outweigh love. Someone who sees the risk but takes the chance anyway, because love, real love, is never for the faint of heart. It belongs to those who are brave enough to claim it. Love that is hidden for too long eventually turns into regret. A man who suppresses his feelings, who lets fear, pride, or doubt hold him back, may one day find himself staring at a reality he never wanted. A reality where you are no longer waiting. Where the opportunity has passed, where the connection he once felt so deeply has slipped through his fingers. At first, he may tell himself that keeping his love hidden was the right choice. He may convince himself that staying silent protected him from pain, that it was better to be cautious than to risk the unknown. But time has a way of revealing the truth, and the truth is, love does not wait forever. One day he will see you moving on, living your life, opening your heart to someone who isn't afraid to claim you. He will see another man giving you the love he always felt but never expressed, and that's when it will hit him. He didn't lose you because you stopped caring. He lost you because he never showed you how much he cared in the first place. Regret is a slow burn. It doesn't hit all at once. It creeps in during quiet moments, when he hears a song that reminds him of you, when he catches himself wondering how your day is going, when he scrolls past an old message thread and realizes how much he held back. It sinks deeper when he sees someone else appreciating you in ways he never allowed himself to, but by then it might be too late. Because love is not just about feeling, it's about action. It's about showing up, speaking up, taking the chance even when there are no guarantees. The man who hides his love convinces himself that there will always be more time, that one day he will be ready. But love does not work on a schedule. It does not wait until fear fades. It moves forward with or without him. And you deserve to be with someone who does not hesitate. You deserve a love that is clear, a love that is bold enough to stand in the light, not one that hides in the shadows of doubt. The man who truly loves you will not let fear keep him from you. He will not choose silence when his heart is screaming your name. So, if he continues to hide, if he lets uncertainty hold him back, then the real question is not whether he loves you, it's whether he is capable of the kind of love you deserve. And if he isn't, then you must be the one to walk away, not because you don't care, but because you know that love, real love, should never be something you have to wonder about. It should be felt, seen, and known. The hardest truth is this. Sometimes, the greatest lesson a man can learn is losing the very thing he was too afraid to claim. And only then, when the door has closed, when the moment has passed, will he understand that love was never meant to be hidden. It was meant to be lived.